Have you ever been told you weren't good enough? That you'd never make it? That you were nothing? This channel is for you. Welcome to the Resilience Chronicles. Every day we bring you stories of people who were underestimated, betrayed, and left for broken, and how they rose to claim everything. Hit that like button, subscribe now, and turn on notifications. Remember, resilience is the ultimate revenge. You know that moment in movies where the villain thinks he's won? Where he's standing on top of the world holding the trophy while the hero is bleeding out in the gutter? That was my life for 3 years. I was the one in the gutter. My husband, Julian Thorne, was the guy with the trophy. He was the billionaire genius, the man on the magazine covers, the guy every woman wanted and every man wanted to be. But here's the thing about standing on top of the world. It's a long, long way down. The night my marriage died, I was wearing a silver dress that cost more than my first car. It was the night of the Thorne Dynamics Gala, the biggest event of the year. Senators, tech moguls, celebrities, they were all packed into the Onyx Grand Hotel ballroom, drinking $50 champagne and waiting for my husband to take the stage. I stood next to Julian near the ice sculpture, trying to keep my weight off my swollen ankles. I was 7 months pregnant, and the heels he made me wear felt like torture devices. "Smile, Lila," Julian whispered, pinching the skin of my arm. "You look like a funeral decoration." "I'm tired, Julian," I said, keeping my voice low. "The baby is kicking. Can I just sit down for 5 minutes?" He turned to me. The smile on his face was perfect for the cameras, but his eyes were dead. "You sit when we leave," he said. "Until then, you stand. You look pretty. And you keep your mouth shut." That was our deal. He provided the penthouse, the cars, and the perfect life. I provided the silence. I was just a waitress when he found me, a nobody. He liked that. He liked having a wife who owed him everything. But he didn't know the truth. He didn't know why I was a waitress. He didn't know who I really was. And he definitely didn't know that the hotel we were standing in, the one he was bragging about renting for the night, my father owned it. "Mr. Thorne, a photo for the Daily News," Julian posed. He puffed out his chest. He pulled me closer, his grip tight enough to bruise. "Of course," he charmed. "Anything for the press." As he turned, his elbow clipped a passing waiter. It was a small bump, barely a touch. But it was enough. The waiter, a young kid who looked terrified, lost his balance. The tray tipped. Splash. 3 glasses of red wine cascaded down the front of Julian's pristine white tuxedo jacket. The music stopped. The chatter died. 500 people turned to stare. Julian looked down at his ruined suit. The red stain looked like a gunshot wound in the fabric. His face went pale, then red, then a terrifying shade of purple. He looked at the waiter. "You idiot!" Julian hissed. "I'm so sorry, sir," the waiter stammered, pulling out a napkin. "I didn't—" Julian slapped the napkin away. Then he looked at me, and I saw the calculation in his eyes. He couldn't scream at a waiter. That would look bad for his image. He needed a scapegoat, someone he owned. "Lila," he said, his voice loud and booming. "Why did you push him?" I froze. "What?" "I saw you," Julian lied, shaking his head with fake disappointment. "You shoved the poor boy. God, Lila, I know you've been hormonal, but this is a new low." He was doing it. He was gaslighting me in front of 500 witnesses. "Julian, I didn't touch him," I pleaded, tears stinging my eyes. "Don't lie to me," he shouted. The room gasped. Julian Thorne never shouted. He grabbed my arm, hard. "Get out," he spat. "Julian, please." I said, "Get out," he roared, pointing at the exit doors. "Go wait in the car. You're embarrassing me. You're embarrassing this family." He dragged me toward the side exit. The humiliation burned my skin. Everyone was watching. The senator's wife looked away. The tech bros were snickering. He shoved me through the heavy metal doors into the back hallway. The noise of the party cut off instantly. It was just us in the cold, gray service corridor. He didn't hit me. He didn't have to. He leaned in close, his breath hot on my ear. "You are worthless," he whispered. "You are a clumsy, stupid, broken thing. If you weren't carrying my child, I would leave you on the street where I found you." He straightened his jacket, trying to hide the stain. "Don't come back in," he said. "And don't go to the penthouse. I locked it. You can sleep in the lobby for all I care." He turned and walked back into the party, putting his smile back on like a mask. I stood there alone, shaking. My hand went to my belly. My baby kicked. Hard. Worthless. That word echoed in my head. I looked at the exit sign. It led to the rainy alleyway. That was where he expected me to go. To cry. To wait for him like a good little dog. I wiped my face. I took a deep breath. I didn't turn left toward the alley. I turned right. Toward the elevators. Julian thought he had locked the penthouse. And for Mrs. Thorne, the waitress, he probably had. But he forgot one thing. This was the Onyx Grand. And the owner's daughter always has a master key. I pressed the button for the 50th floor. The doors slid open. I wasn't going up there to sleep. I was going up there to start a war. The elevator ride was smooth, silent, and fast. My reflection in the gold doors was a mess, mascara running, hair coming loose. I looked like a victim. I reached into my purse and pulled out a tissue. I wiped the black streaks from my cheeks. No, I told myself. Not a victim. A Vane. My real name is Lila Vane. My father is Silas Vane, the ghost of Wall Street, the man who buys companies for breakfast and sells them for scraps by lunch. I ran away from his world 3 years ago because I wanted a simple life. I wanted love that wasn't transactional. I thought I found it with Julian. I was wrong. I found a different kind of transaction. I was just an asset to him, a depreciating asset. Ding! The doors opened onto the penthouse floor. 2 massive security guards in black suits blocked the hallway. "Floor is closed, ma'am," one of them said, stepping forward. He looked bored. "Private event downstairs." I didn't stop walking. "Hello, Marcus," I said. The guard froze. He squinted at me. Miss Lila?" His jaw dropped. He looked at my swollen belly. He looked at the tears I had just wiped away. "I thought you were in Europe," he stammered. "I was in hell, Marcus," I said, my voice steady. "Is he here?" Marcus nodded slowly. He tapped his earpiece. "Boss? You're not going to believe this." The double mahogany doors at the end of the hall opened. Silas Vane stood there. He looked exactly the same as the day I left. Tall. Silver hair perfectly combed. Wearing a black turtleneck that cost more than Julian's car. He held a glass of whiskey in one hand. He looked at me. He didn't smile. Silas Vane didn't smile. He looked at my shoes. He looked at my belly. He looked at the bruise starting to form on my arm where Julian had grabbed me. "You're late," he said. It was so typical. So him. "No, I missed you. Just a comment on the schedule." But then I saw it. His hand. The one holding the whiskey glass. It was shaking. I walked toward him. I tried to be strong. I tried to be the Vane he raised me to be. But 3 years of holding it in. 3 years of Julian's voice in my head. I broke. "He kicked me out, Dad," I whispered. The glass in Silas's hand shattered. He didn't even flinch as the whiskey and shards fell to the carpet. He stepped over the mess and pulled me into a hug so tight I thought my ribs would crack. "I know," he said into my hair. "I saw." "You saw." He pulled back. "This is my hotel, Lila. There are cameras everywhere, even in the service hallway." He guided me to the massive leather sofa. He sat me down and put a pillow behind my back. "Marcus," he barked, "get the medical kit and get B on the line." "B?" I asked. "Julian's assistant?" Silas nodded. "She's been sending me reports for 6 months. She's the one who told me you were pregnant." My head spun. You've been watching me?" "I never stopped watching you," Silas said. "I let you play house because you asked me to. I let you marry the fraud because you said you loved him. But tonight?" He walked over to the giant wall of monitors. On the center screen, there was a live feed of the ballroom downstairs. Julian was back on stage. He had changed his jacket. He was laughing. He was raising a glass of champagne. "Tonight, he broke the rules," Silas said. He pressed a button on his desk. The lights in the room dimmed. "He thinks he's a king," Silas said, his voice dropping to a terrifying growl. "He thinks he just threw out the trash." Silas turned to me. "Are you ready to show him who really owns the castle?" I looked at the screen. I looked at Julian's smiling, arrogant face. I thought about the baby, my child. If I went back to him, my child would grow up thinking this was normal, thinking it was okay to treat people like dirt. "Yes," I said. Silas nodded. He picked up a red phone on his desk. "Shut it down," he said into the receiver. "Shut what down, sir?" the voice on the other end asked. "Everything," Silas said. "Cancel his room key, tow his car, freeze the hotel's credit card terminals, and lock the ballroom doors." He hung up. On the screen, I saw Julian check his watch. He looked annoyed. He tapped his microphone. Screech. Feedback whined through the ballroom speakers. The lights in the ballroom flickered. And then, they went out. Total darkness downstairs. Up here, in the penthouse, we were bathed in light. "Let the games begin," Silas whispered. I watched as the emergency lights cast a red glow over the panicked crowd below. Julian was shouting for someone to fix the lights. He had no idea. The lights weren't broken. His life was. Power is a funny thing. You can have $1 billion in the bank, but if the lights go out and the doors lock, you're just another scared man in the dark. Downstairs, 500 of the city's most powerful people were realizing that money couldn't buy them a way out. Upstairs, I was watching it happen on a 4K monitor, sipping tea that cost more than my wedding dress. "This is Protocol 7, Silas said, watching the chaos calmly. "Standard procedure for a hostile threat." "A threat?" I asked. "Julian Thorne isn't a guest anymore," Silas replied. "He's a trespasser." On the screen, Julian was losing his composure. The visionary mask was slipping. He grabbed a waiter, the same one he had yelled at earlier. "Get the generator on!" Julian screamed. We could hear him through the security feed. "I am paying $50,000 for this room. Fix it!" The waiter pulled away. "I can't, sir. The system is locked out. It says, owner override." "Owner override?" Julian shouted. "I know the owner. Get him on the phone." He pulled out his cell phone. He dialed a number. Up in the penthouse, a red landline phone on Silas's desk began to ring. 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 It was a shrill, old-fashioned sound. Silas looked at the phone. He looked at me. "Do you want to answer it?" he asked. My heart hammered against my ribs. "No," I said. "Let it ring." We watched Julian redial and redial. "He thinks he's calling the hotel manager," Silas explained, "but all executive calls are routed here tonight." Julian threw his phone on the floor in frustration. It slid across the stage. Then, the side doors opened. Not the exit doors, the kitchen doors. 6 security guards marched in. They weren't the regular hotel staff. These men were huge, wearing tactical vests with the Vane Holdings logo, a silver V. The crowd parted for them like the Red Sea. The lead guard, a man with a scar on his chin, walked straight up to the stage. He didn't offer a hand. He didn't say, Sir. Mr. Thorne, the guard boomed. His voice carried over the murmurs. You need to vacate the premises immediately. Julian laughed. It was a high, hysterical sound. Vacate? I'm the keynote speaker. I have the suite for the week. Your reservation has been cancelled, the guard said, and your payment method was declined. Declined? Julian scoffed. My card has $1 million limit. Not anymore. The guard pointed to the main exit. You and your party have 5 minutes to clear the room. After that, we call the police for criminal trespassing. Criminal trespassing. The words hung in the air. The senators and bankers were already scrambling for their coats. Nobody wanted to be arrested. They were fleeing the sinking ship. Julian stood alone on the stage. The King of New York was being evicted like an unruly tenant. He looked desperate. He looked small. But then, he looked up. He looked straight at the camera lens mounted on the balcony. For a second, I thought he saw me. His eyes narrowed. A flicker of recognition? Or just paranoia? Who is doing this? He mouthed. He grabbed his phone from the floor. He didn't call the manager this time. He called me. My phone buzzed in my lap. Caller ID. Husband. Silas watched me. Don't. But I picked it up. I didn't speak. I just listened. Lila? Julian's voice was breathless, panicked. Lila, answer me. Where are you? The hotel is going crazy. My cards are frozen. I need you to bring the emergency cash from the safe. Now. I held the phone to my ear. Lila! He screamed. Don't you dare ignore me. I am your husband. I took a deep breath. Not for long, I whispered. And I hung up. Hanging up on him felt good, but hanging up wasn't enough. A narcissist like Julian doesn't stop because you say no. He stops when you take away his audience. And to do that, we needed ammunition. He's heading to the parking garage, Silas said, tracking a blinking red dot on the map. He thinks his Rolls-Royce is still there. It's not? I asked. Tow truck took it 20 minutes ago, Silas said dryly. Parking violation. He was over the line. I almost smiled. The library door opened. Bea walked in. She looked different. She wasn't wearing her usual gray office mouse suit. She was wearing jeans and a leather jacket. She looked like herself. She was holding a thick black leather notebook. I got it, she said, tossing the book onto the table. It landed with a heavy thud. Silas looked at it like it was a bomb. The ledger? He asked. Every bribe, Bea confirmed. Every payoff, every shell company. He thinks he's clever, hiding it offline. He calls it his insurance policy. And now it's ours, I said, reaching for the book. I opened it. The handwriting was Julian's. Spiky, aggressive. May 4th, $50K to Senator Hayes, zoning permit. June 12th, $100K to Inspector Davis, safety. Violation. August 1st, Project Aura. I stopped. Project Aura, I read aloud. Bea nodded. That's the big one. He's obsessed with it. It's a rival tech firm. Aura Systems. If he buys it, he gets their patents. It saves Thorne Dynamics from bankruptcy. But he doesn't have the money, I said. I saw the accounts. He's liquid. He's not using his money, Bea said. He's leveraging everything. The house, the cars, the future earnings. He's going all in on this acquisition. A plan began to form in my mind. It was dangerous. It was crazy. But it was perfect. I looked at Silas. Dad, I said, who owns Aura Systems right now? Silas swirled his drink. A holding company in the Caymans, Obscura LLC. And who owns Obscura? Silas smirked. I do. Of course he did. My father owned half the world through shell companies. He wants to buy Aura, I said, my voice rising with excitement. He's desperate for it. It's his lifeline. So we deny the sale? Silas asked. Starve him out? No, I said. I stood up. I walked to the window, looking down at the rainy city. We sell it to him. The room went silent. Sell it? B asked. Why would we help him? We're not helping him, I said, turning around. We're handing him an anchor. I walked back to the table and flipped the ledger open to a blank page. We agree to the sale, but we jack up the price. 50 million. Cash. Immediate transfer. He doesn't have 50 million, B argued. He'll find it, I said. He'll borrow from sharks. He'll mortgage the Hamptons estate. He'll empty the offshore accounts he thinks I don't know about. He will drain every single drop of blood he has to get this deal. And then? Silas asked, leaning forward. And then, I said, I sign the contract as the CEO of Obscura. I tapped the table. But I add a clause. Clause 14b. Silas raised an eyebrow. The poison pill? Exactly, I said. A clause that states, in the event of financial insolvency, the buyer assumes full personal liability for all existing debts of the seller. Aura has debt? B asked. It will by tomorrow, I said coldly. We're going to load Aura with $100 million in toxic debt from one of Dad's other failing companies. Julian won't check. He never checks the due diligence. He's too arrogant. So, Silas said, slowly putting the pieces together. He pays us $50 million cash. To buy a company that owes $100 million, I finished. He instantly bankrupts himself. And because of the clause, the debt pierces the corporate veil. They come for his personal assets, the house, the yacht, the watch on his wrist. And the $50 million he pays us? B asked. I smiled. A real smile this time. That goes into a trust fund, I said. For my child. Silas let out a low whistle. That, he said, is diabolical. No, I said. That's business. Suddenly, the screens on the wall flashed red. Alert, perimeter breach. We all turned. On the security feed, a black SUV had just rammed through the gate of the underground parking garage. Julian. He hadn't left. He was coming up. And he looked furious. In his hand, he was holding something metal. A tire iron. He wasn't coming to talk. He was coming to break the door down. There is a specific look a man gets when he realizes he's lost control. It's not anger. It's panic masquerading as rage. Julian was unraveling. He had spent years curating an image of cool, calm perfection. But put a man in a corner, take away his credit cards and tell him no for the first time in his life, the monster comes out to play. He's trying to override the elevator manually, Silas observed, watching the screen. He's going to try to pry the doors open. He's dangerous, B said, her voice trembling. Silas, we should call the police. No police, I said quickly. They both looked at me. If we call the police, he gets arrested for trespassing, I explained. He spends a night in jail. He posts bail. He spins a story to the press about a misunderstanding. He survives. I looked at the screen, at the man who had called me worthless. I don't want him to survive, I said. I want him to suffer. If we arrest him now, he can't buy Aura Systems. He can't bankrupt himself. Silas nodded slowly. She's right. We need him desperate, not detained. He pressed the intercom button on his desk. Marcus, he said to the head of security, intercept him. But do not engage. I want you to give him a message. What message, sir? Marcus asked over the radio. Silas looked at me. Your call, CO. I leaned into the microphone. Tell him, I said, my voice steady, that his meeting regarding the Aura acquisition has been moved up. Tell him the seller is ready to talk, but only if he leaves the building right now. On the screen, the elevator doors groaned. Julian had jammed the tire iron into the gap. He was prying them apart, his face red with exertion. Open! He screamed. I know you're up there! Suddenly, the stairwell door burst open. Marcus and 3 other guards stepped out. They didn't draw weapons. They just stood there. A wall of black suits. Julian spun around, raising the tire iron. "Get back," he shouted. "I'll sue you. I'll sue every single one of you." "Mr. Thorne?" Marcus said calmly. "You can try to pry those doors open, but the elevator car is locked on the 50th floor. All you're going to find is an empty shaft." Julian froze. He looked at the dark gap he had created. A 50-story drop into nothing. He lowered the iron slightly. "My wife," Julian panted. "Where is she?" "Mrs. Thorne is gone," Marcus lied smoothly. "She left the premises 20 minutes ago." "Liar." "However," Marcus continued, "we did receive a communiqué for you, from Obscura LLC. The name hit Julian like a taser. "Obscura," he whispered. "The Aura owners?" "They are aware of your situation," Marcus said, "and they are willing to expedite the sale. Tonight." Julian's eyes went wide. The rage vanished, replaced instantly by greed. This was his lifeline. "Tonight? When?" "Midnight," Marcus said, "but only if you vacate this property immediately. If you are still here in 5 minutes, the deal is off, and they sell to your competitor." It was the perfect pivot. Julian dropped the tire iron. The family man was gone. The business shark was back. He didn't care about me. He didn't care about the baby. He cared about the deal. "Fine," Julian said, straightening his ruined jacket. "I'm leaving. Tell them I'll be ready." He walked past the guards, chin up, trying to salvage some dignity. As he reached the exit, he turned back. "Tell my wife," he spat, "that when I buy this company, when I'm the richest man in this city, she's going to beg me to take her back. And I'm going to laugh in her face." He slammed the door. In the penthouse, Silas let out a breath. "He took the bait," Silas said. I looked at the empty elevator shaft on the screen. "He thinks he's climbing a ladder," I said. "He doesn't know he's digging a grave." Bee's phone buzzed. She looked at it and gasped. "Lila," she said, "look at the news." She turned the TV on. Breaking news: Thorne Dynamics. Stock plunges 15% after hours. "Why?" Silas asked. "The market is closed." "Someone leaked a rumor," Bee said, reading the ticker. "A rumor that Julian is insolvent. That the gala was shut down because he couldn't pay the bill." We all looked at each other. We hadn't leaked that. "Who leaked it?" I asked. Bee scrolled down. "It wasn't a leak," she said. "It was a tweet." She turned the screen to us. It was from the waiter. The one Julian had humiliated. "Just wait in 24. Billionaire Julian Thorne just got kicked out of his own gala for a declined credit card. Harsh karma. Thorne Dynamics. Broke." The tweet had 50,000 retweets. "He's trending," I whispered. But this wasn't part of the plan. If the stock tanked too fast, he wouldn't be able to get the loans to buy Aura. The trap would fail. "We have to move fast," I said. "We have to close the deal before the banks wake up." The clock on the wall read 11:45 p.m. The war room in the penthouse was silent. We had set up a digital stage. I was sitting in a high-backed leather chair facing a webcam. But the lighting was rigged. A bright light blasted from behind me, turning my face into a dark, unrecognizable silhouette. Silas stood in the corner, out of frame. Bee was manning the connection. "He's logging in," Bee whispered. "Connection secure." "Voice modulator?" I asked. "Active," Bee confirmed. "You'll sound deeper, distorted." I took a deep breath. I put on the heavy black framed glasses just in case. "Let's buy a company," I said. The screen flickered. Julian's face appeared. He looked terrible. He was in his home office now. Behind him, I could see boxes packed. He was already preparing to flee if things went wrong. "Ms. Vane," Julian said. He tried to sound confident, but his voice cracked. You're a hard woman to reach. I value my privacy, Mr. Thorne, I said. My voice came out of the speakers sounding like a stranger. And I value my time. You have the contract? I do, Julian said, holding up a tablet. My lawyers have looked it over. It seems standard. Liar. He hadn't shown it to lawyers. He couldn't afford them right now. He was winging it. Then you saw Clause 14b? I asked. This was the test. Clause 14b, Julian repeated. He glanced down at the screen, scrolling fast. Too fast to read. Yes, yes. Liability transfer. Standard for a distressed asset sale. We accept. He didn't know. He had no idea he was signing his own death warrant. And the payment? I pressed. 50 million, wire transfer. Now. It's a lot of liquidity on short notice. Julian stalled. Perhaps a structured payment plan? No payment plan. I cut him off. Cash or I hang up. I have Google on the other line. The threat worked. The mention of a competitor terrified him. No, wait, Julian said. I have the funds. It's just, I'm moving some assets around. Give me 2 minutes. We watched him type furiously on his other keyboard. Bea leaned in and whispered to me. He's emptying his offshore accounts, she said. He's draining the rainy day fund. He's literally betting the farm. Good, I whispered back. Done? Julian said, sweating profusely. Transfer initiated. You should see it. Now. Ping. A notification popped up on Silas's laptop. Wire received. $50,000. Sender, Thorne Private Holdings. It was done. He was broke. He had just sent his last dime to the wife he tried to destroy. Money received, I said. Sign the document. Julian pressed his thumb to the screen. Authorized. Congratulations, Mr. Thorne, I said. You now own Aura Systems. Julian slumped back in his chair, relief washing over him. He started laughing. I did it, he muttered. I saved it. I'm the owner. You certainly are, I said. Now, Julian said, his arrogance returning instantly. When can I get the keys to the server room? I want to announce the acquisition tomorrow morning. The keys are in the mail, I said. Oh, and Mr. Thorne? Yes? Check your email. I just sent you the balance sheet for your new company. Balance sheet? Julian frowned. I already saw the prospectus. You saw the projected earnings, I corrected. I sent you the debt schedule. On the screen, Julian opened the email. We watched his eyes scan the document. We watched the color drain from his face. What is this? He whispered. That, I said, is a list of Aura's outstanding liabilities. $120 million. Due immediately. 100, Julian choked. No, that's impossible. That's more than the company is worth. It is, I agreed. But I'm the owner, he shouted. I'm not responsible for old debt. Clause 14b, Julian, I said softly, using his first name, dropping the formal tone. He froze. Clause 14b states the buyer assumes personal liability. I leaned forward, turned off the blinding backlight. My face came into focus. Julian squinted at the screen. Who are you? I took off the glasses. Hello, Julian. He fell out of his chair. Literally. He scrambled back up, staring at the screen like he was seeing a ghost. Lila? You wanted to know who owns the castle, I said. Now you know. You set me up, he screamed. This is fraud. I'll call the FBI. Please do, I said. I'm sure they'd love to see the black ledger. I held up the black notebook. Julian stopped breathing. Checkmate, I said, and I cut the feed. They say the truth will set you free. But in the world of high finance, the truth usually just gets you indicted. The morning after the deal, Julian Thorne woke up in a house he no longer technically owned, driving a car the bank was already looking for, to a job that was about to evaporate. Most men would run, but Julian wasn't most men, he was a narcissist. And narcissists don't run. They double down. Deny it! Julian screamed into his headset. Deny everything. The tweet is a lie. The deal is a strategic partnership. The rumors about my wife are a mental health crisis. He paused, listening. Yes. Say she's off her meds. Say she's paranoid. Paint her as the crazy ex-waitress who couldn't handle the pressure. We need sympathy, Jerry. We need the narrative. In the penthouse, we were watching his strategy unfold on the news. CNBC headline, Thorne Dynamics. CEO claims family crisis behind stock drop. He's playing the victim card, Silas said, sipping coffee. Predictable. He's calling me crazy, I said, watching Julian's spokesperson on TV. He's telling the world I'm unstable. It's his only move, B said. If he discredits you, the black ledger looks like a forgery made by a vengeful wife. I looked at the ledger on the table. It was our nuclear weapon. But we couldn't just hand it to the police yet. If we did, Julian's lawyers would tie it up in court for years. We needed the court of public opinion to convict him first. He's holding a press conference at noon, Silas said, on the steps of City Hall. He's going to announce the Aura acquisition as a victory and announce your medical leave at the same time. I stood up. I'm not going to be on medical leave, I said. No? Silas asked. No, I said. I'm going to be at that press conference. Silas smiled. It's risky. If you go out there, you lose your anonymity. The press will swarm you. The Lila Vane secret will be out. I don't care about the secret anymore, I said. I touched my stomach. I care about the future, and I'm not raising my child in the shadows. I turned to B. Do we still have access to the Jumbotron? I asked. B grinned. The giant screen in Times Square? Vane Holdings owns it. And City Hall is right down the block, I noted. Perfect sight lines. What do you need? B asked, opening her laptop. I pulled a USB drive from my pocket. It contained the raw footage from the green room, the slap, the insults, the worthless comment. I need you to cue this up, I said, and when I give the signal, I want you to play it. Loud. The phone rang. It wasn't Julian this time. It was my sister, Elena, the one I hadn't spoken to in 3 years because Julian forbade it. Lila, she cried. Is it true? The news is saying you're in a psych ward. Mom is freaking out. My heart broke. He was hurting my family now. I'm fine, Elle, I promised. I'm safe. But I need you to do something for me. Anything. Turn on the TV at noon, I said. And tell Mom. Tell Mom to make popcorn. The world loves a redemption arc. Julian knew that. He stood there, looking humble, looking sad, ready to spin the greatest lie of his career. I was watching from a black SUV parked across the street. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would crack a rib. Ready? Silas asked from the driver's seat. Ready, I said. Thank you all for coming. It has been a difficult 24 hours. As many of you know, my wife Lila has been struggling for some time. The pressure of this life, it broke her. He paused. He wiped a fake tear. Last night she had an episode. She made threats. She made false accusations. It breaks my heart to see the woman I love lose her grip on reality. The cameras clicked sympathetically. The reporters were eating it up. But, Julian continued, his voice strengthening, I am a fighter, and for the sake of my unborn child, I will keep building. Today, I am proud to announce that Thorne Dynamics has acquired Aura Systems. This move secures our future. Now, I whispered into my earpiece. B, back in the penthouse, hit enter. Behind Julian, across the crowded plaza, the massive digital billboard in Times Square flickered. Usually, it showed ads for soda or sneakers. Suddenly, it went black. Then, giant white text appeared. The truth about Lila. The crowd murmured. Heads turned. Julian stopped speaking. He looked confused. Then, the video started. It was grainy, but the audio was crystal clear. It blasted from the billboard's massive speakers, echoing off the skyscrapers. Video Julian. You are worthless. You are a clumsy, stupid, broken thing. The crowd gasped. On the screen, giant Julian was shoving giant pregnant Lila. Video Julian. If you weren't carrying my child, I would leave you on the street where I found you. Real Julian, on the podium, turned pale. He looked at the screen. He saw himself, the monster he tried to hide. Turn it off, he screamed. That's fake. It's AI. Turn it off. But the video kept playing. Video Julian. You are nothing. Without me, you are trash. Then the car door opened. I stepped out. I wasn't wearing a hospital gown. I wasn't hiding. I was wearing a white suit. Power. Purity. I walked through the crowd. The reporters saw me. They parted instantly, cameras swinging from the podium to me. Lila! Someone shouted. I didn't stop. I walked right up the steps of City Hall. Julian saw me coming. He looked like he was going to vomit. Lila, he hissed, away from the mic. What are you doing? You're ruining us. I walked past him. I took the microphone from the stand. The feedback whined. The square went silent. My husband says I'm nothing, I said. My voice was calm. It boomed across the plaza. He says I'm a waitress he saved from the street. I looked directly at the camera. He's right about the waitress part, but he's wrong about the rest. I turned to Julian. You didn't save me, Julian, and you definitely didn't make me. I pulled a piece of paper from my pocket, the deed to the Onyx Grand, the Aura Systems contract, the Black Ledger summary. My name is Lila Vane, I said. The name ripped through the crowd. Vane? As in Silas Vane? Julian's knees actually buckled. He grabbed the podium for support. And as of midnight last night, I continued, I am the majority creditor of the company you just bought. You owe me $120 million. I smiled. A cold, hard smile. I hold your future in my hands. Sirens wailed in the distance, fast, getting closer. Julian looked around frantically. No, he muttered. No, no, no. Oh, one more thing, I said into the mic. Since I own the debt and you signed the personal liability clause, I pointed to the approaching police cars. I believe they're here for you. Fraud, embezzlement, and assault. The police cars screeched to a halt at the bottom of the steps. 4 officers got out. They weren't coming for the crazy wife. They were coming for the visionary. Julian looked at me one last time. Lila, he begged. Baby, please. I leaned in close to the mic so the whole world could hear. You're finished. The fall of Rome took centuries. The fall of Julian Thorne took exactly 48 hours. But the cleanup? That took 18 months. I spent my 3rd trimester in deposition rooms with lawyers. I gave birth to my son Leo 2 weeks after the indictment came down. Julian wasn't there. He was in a holding cell at Rikers, unable to make bail because, ironically, his assets were frozen by creditors he owed everything to. Me. All rise, the bailiff called out. Judge Henderson walked in, a stern woman with glasses on a chain. She looked at Julian with zero sympathy. This wasn't just a divorce trial. This was criminal court. The district attorney had used the Black Ledger B provided to build a case that was airtight. Fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion, and because of the video, assault. Julian's lawyer stood up. He was a court-appointed public defender. Julian couldn't afford his usual sharks anymore. Your Honor, the lawyer said weakly, my client maintains that the financial irregularities were clerical errors, and the video was taken out of context. The judge looked over her glasses. Out of context? She repeated. Mr. Thorne, you are seen on 4K video calling your pregnant wife trash and physically shoving her. It was stress, Julian blurted out. He stood up, ignoring his lawyer. I was under pressure. She provoked me. Sit down, Mr. Thorne, the judge snapped. Then it was my turn. I walked to the stand. I didn't look at Julian. Mrs. Thorne, the DA asked, can you tell the court about the night of the gala? I took a breath. I looked at the jury. 12 ordinary people. He told me I was nothing, I said. He told me I was a prop. I looked at Julian then. For the first time in months. But he forgot that props are what hold the stage up, I said. And when you kick out the support beams, the roof comes down. The DA nodded. He turned to the jury. The state rests. The jury didn't need long. They were out for 45 minutes. When they came back, the foreman didn't look at Julian. That's always the sign. We find the defendant, Julian Thorne. Guilty, 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 on all counts. Julian slumped in his chair. He looked small. The visionary was just a con man in a cheap suit. Julian Thorne, the judge said. You used your power to bully, to steal, and to abuse. You thought the rules didn't apply to you. She slammed the gavel. I sentence you to 15 years in federal prison, with no possibility of parole for the first 10. The sound of the gavel echoed like a gunshot. Bang. It was over. 2 bailiffs moved in to cuff him. Lila! Julian screamed as they dragged him away. Lila, you can't do this. I made you. You're nothing without me. I didn't flinch. I just watched him disappear through the side door. The same way he had kicked me out. Silas put his hand on my shoulder. It's done, he said. I looked at the empty defense table. No, I said. It's just beginning. They say the best revenge is living well. I disagree. The best revenge is taking the thing that destroyed you and turning it into something that saves others. Julian's Thorne Dynamics was gone, liquidated. But Aura Systems, the company he bought for me, that was thriving. Under my leadership, we pivoted. We stopped making military tech and started making affordable medical devices. And the hotel? The scene of the crime? My father gave it to me as a divorce present. I didn't keep it as a hotel. I stood on the stage of the ballroom, the same stage where Julian had given his speech. But the crystal chandeliers were gone. The stuffy atmosphere was gone. The room was filled with women, survivors. Women who had fled abusive partners, toxic bosses, and broken systems. This was the launch of the Phoenix Foundation, a shelter, a legal aid center, and a business incubator for women starting over. Welcome, I said into the microphone. My name is Lila. Applause filled the room. Real applause, not the polite, fearful clapping of Julian's gala. This was warm. It was loud. I looked down at the front row. Silas was there, holding my 1-year-old son, Leo. Leo had Julian's dark hair, but he had my eyes, and he would never, ever hear a raised voice in his home. Bea was there too. She was my COO now. She looked happy. Free. After the speech, I walked out to the balcony. The city skyline sparkled in the twilight. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from the prison system. Inmate transfer complete, J. Thorne. I swiped the notification away. I didn't care where he was. He was the past. I looked at Leo, who was toddling toward me, giggling. I picked him up. He smelled like baby shampoo and hope. You know, Silas said, joining me on the balcony. You could have kept the money. You could have bought an island. I didn't want an island, I said, kissing Leo's cheek. I wanted a home. Silas smiled. A real smile this time. You're a lot like your mother, he said. No, I corrected him. I'm a vain. I looked out at the city lights. I wasn't the waitress anymore. I wasn't the victim. I wasn't even the avenger. I was just Lila. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. And that's how the powerless become unstoppable. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment below, what would you have done? I'll see you in the next one. Stay resilient.